Good morning. I apologize for racing out on you. I had the worst nightmare for a speaker. I had some breakfast this morning that didn't agree with me. I know, right? And I'm like, okay, I'm either going to go on stage and throw up, or I'm going to throw up off stage and then come back and walk on. So I apologize for that. But I figured it's probably best to be honest with you, that so you just know that I don't dislike you guys. So I'm going to give you a little bit of information about my story and what we've done. Hopefully, have some time to talk with Ben. The title of the talk today is Designing Compassionate Systems. But first, like a lot of speakers I've seen through the years, I want to kind of walk you through my last 5 or 6 days or hours here. Last night, I got to meet the mayor of Malmo. This is her. Do you guys, anybody from Malmo? How many of you are from Malmo? Okay. So she's your first woman mayor, and they gave us a little bit of a event at the City Hall where we got to mingle with other speakers. I was actually seated at the table of honor with the mayor, so I got my little place card. Now, the mayor misspelled my name, and I'm not going to hold that against her, but she was amazing, and she shared a few things with me that I thought I'd share with you guys today as a little Malmo primer. The first thing is, she got her first home in Malmo when she was 21. She was walking by and saw it and just was infatuated with it, bought it right there, and she's still there to this day. There's a secret room in the town hall where the mayor, it's almost like a mayor bunker where she can go and hide. And then the mayor doesn't have a Twitter account. And I told her probably that she should get one so she can battle Donald Trump and join the resistance. She wants a Twitter account, so we probably should get her one. So who am I? Well, if you went to Google in 2013 and looked up most connected man in the world, I would come right up. That was in 2013. By 2015, that became just most connected man. And by 2017, you could just type in most connected. And that was in any country that I went to. It was like 23 or 24 countries at that time. What I'm hoping, therefore, is after this year with my book, we can just get to most. Because I think that is kind of the Google search you want out of life. I've been in the news a lot for kind of quantified self and biohacking. In 2014, I was on TV for the first time. My mom, who told me that computers would never pay, would have been proud. I've done 2 different TV specials. I've been on the cover of Bloomberg magazine. It counts. That's me up underneath the G, that little head. It counts. Come on, you know it does. You would count it. In 2014, I did a TED Talk in Vienna, which, whenever you speak, people are always like, have you done a TED Talk? Like, that's the marker of, like, success or something. I'll tell you the real marker of success. Yes, I've done a TED Talk in 2014, but there are 1, 2, 3, 4 different TED Talks about me. So, I'm always amazed. Like, I don't think what I did was that interesting, but some people do. I've got a book that I just finished that I'll be talking a little bit about. But for most of you, I bet you've never heard me, which leads us to the question, what did I do that's so interesting? Well, for nearly a decade, from 2008 to now, every piece of data that I could collect about me that I put on the internet, or basically anytime I touched something electronic, I saved. But how do you organize a life? How do you get started? Well, for me, I had to start with where most of my data was back in 2008, and that was kind of in my social systems, MySpace, Facebook, other types of things I was using. But how do you store that, and where do you store it? So I wanted to be able to see my life over time, so I used Google Calendar. So what you're seeing here is every single interaction I had online got put into my Google Calendar. But was there more to me in 2008 than social media? Absolutely. I had other systems that I monitored, like entertainment and opinion. So if I wrote a feedback for something online, automatically it went into my Google Calendar. A lot of times we write negative posts for restaurants and other types of reviews. Also, any entertainment. If I stream music or watch something, it also went into my Google Calendar. And I had this major breakthrough back in 2008, 2009, as I started seeing my life on a Google Calendar. When information got put in the calendar, the next thing I saw was how I interacted or how the information interacted with me. So the response for it. So imagine this. Imagine if you could see Facebook, But instead of seeing Facebook, you just saw the responses to what you posted. And then you saw how you spent your time around those responses. So for example, if people only respond to you when you're wearing a red shirt on Facebook, you slowly start to wear more red shirts. It's just a very simple feedback loop. And this helped me start to change a lot of behaviors I had. I was pretty unhealthy in 2008. I weighed about 320 pounds. I don't know what that is in kilograms, but it's big, or what we call American. It's the truth. So I managed to monitor these three systems in my life, but I didn't stop there. By 2010 to 2012, I thought I could probably bring more of my life online, or bring it offline into the real world. And I hate that term, the real world. Sorry for saying that. So from there, I went on and I said, I need anything that I put online for other people to consume, a presentation, a blog post, a podcast, any emails I send, documents I create, code I write, any money I spend, where I spend it, etc. So now these three systems join the original three systems and go into my Google Calendar. And my Google Calendar started getting super crazy busy. So I thought to myself, I need to make it more accessible. So I color-coded it. So all of a sudden, I could tell really bad days from really good days just by the color coding of it. But something else happened between 2010 and 2012. This monster, right? The problem with this monster, unlike a web, the information's unstructured and it's not easy to get to. So I had to do things like build secret Twitter accounts that automatically shared the air quality, et cetera, like that, because a lot of developers and a lot of systems don't give you access to that information. And it started leading me to this idea of how do you organize life beyond these. So I looked in the App Store, and the App Store is actually organized by area of life. So I went and screenshotted every single app I had on my device to learn what data it had about me, and I tied that to a category. And it brought me to this new realization, which is our life and what we believe and value is stored in the applications that we use every day. And that led me to look for a system to actually measure value. And the simplest one I could find was by Abraham Maslow, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Are you guys familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs? And what happens is the apps you use actually push through Maslow's hierarchy of needs and become a system of value that you create every day. A lot of what you call happiness or sadness, excitement, struggle, depression, etc., really come from the areas of your life that you're spending your time in. If a majority of your time is spent at the top of your app stack, you're pretty not happy because it's all about image. But if you spend all your time at the bottom of your app stack and those types of apps, you're pretty not happy because all you're doing is worrying about making ends meet. So it's really about learning that balance. What Apple is doing with screen time and Android's doing with digital well-being is a good first step, but we're heading more there. So then I had this idea, could I start to hack bad habits? So like some of you last night, I would spend a lot of time at the bar getting drunk and getting dragged home and things like that. It's not a lie, it's the truth. So what I did was I actually started creating these little geo-fenced systems. So if I was at the bar and it was too late, and I was spending money that I didn't have and getting a little bit crazy, all of a sudden a text message from my bar alert system would tell me to go home. And if I ignored that text message, the bartender, who was also my drug dealer, would get a message telling me, yeah, my bartender was my drug dealer, keep it all flat systems, would get a message telling him to cut me off. And if I didn't do that, my spouse at the time would get text messages and pictures from my camera roll automatically from my system saying, go get Chris. And the idea was I wanted to be able to use my system to monitor me in times when I really couldn't or didn't care to. Something else very simple was I wanted to get a hold of kind of my spending and understand it better. So I used my Google Glass and a couple other systems I hacked together. And if I was at the mall spending too much money and it was close to past payday, close to rent time, I would get messages pushed into Google Alerts that said shop less. If I didn't do that, my geofenced credit card would cut itself off. So again, it was really about using the data that was available to these other systems for myself. Between 2012 and 2014, I became really aware of the profound nature of how these digital systems not only influenced my spending and my work and my behavior, but really my health. Because your health is really the key to how you are able to execute on the things you want to do in life. And that's mental health and physical health. Also, how your health is influenced by the environment. And then finally, as many of you know who traveled here, travel is a big test of both health and environment. All of that data started getting poured in my calendar, and what was hundreds became thousands of data points within my calendar that was searchable and actionable. And when I say by actionable, I started doing more intricate things. One of the problems I had at this time was I had jobs where I worked with people who I felt were inefficient. And when I say inefficient, I meant these are the people who hit reply to all to emails and say thank you. It makes me a little bit crazy. I know we have to be polite, but I don't think you need to like kill everyone's inbox. And I would get on phone calls or conference calls with these people, and I would sometimes get angry and end up in HR. So what I did was I would use a sensor called a Netatmo in my room, and if my voice went a little bit too high or anything over 74 decibels, all of a sudden it would catch it and slowly dim the lights in my house until I would actually hang up the phone so I wouldn't get in trouble with people and I'd have to pretend that I was cut off. The idea being there's so much we can do with the information that's kept from us if we only had access to it. Between 2014 and 2016, it was really the beginning of my spiritual journey, which I'll be talking about with you guys today, which involved looking at the systems that I interacted with that changed my mood or influenced how I was feeling. My Google Calendar was replaced by a system that was much more visually easy to understand that I still use to this day if you go to data.chrisdancy.com. But then I did something I thought was really important. I went back and looked at a lot of the data from different days in my life that were really extremely important to me. And I wanted to understand, was there something that made a memory a memory? Was there something that made nostalgia nostalgia? Was there something special? What were the data elements that really invoked or provided a sense of love and connectedness? And then I started saying to myself, what happens if we could download memories? So my quest was to start to recreate memories. So what I would do is I would take pictures that I took in places like Disney World and then map them to the lighting system on my house. I would then take music that I passively collected from Disney World and have playlists automatically created and played back in my home. I would then take weather conditions that were mapped by my phone and environmentally control my home to match those, and then finally any food I ate in these places and had them delivered. So the idea was I wanted to instantly be able to download the memories that I created back into the present moment. But more importantly, on days that were going to be stressful or moments in my life that were going to be tense, a house move, a job change, something for my family, have those memories play proactively beforehand to start to condition people that it's going to be okay. I know, right? Also, I started looking at how social media influenced me. And Facebook and the social media isn't inherently bad. The problem with it is all of these things, the numbers, the dates, the times, the way it guilts you and pulls your attention. A lot of what people call social media or phone addiction isn't phone addiction, it's metric addiction. The phone isn't killing you, numbers are. It's that simple. So I started using plugins that actually removed the numbers off of Facebook. Now, if you go through my Facebook, there are no numbers, there are no dates. I don't know when things happened. I don't practice anyone's birthday. I'm perpetually living in the now. From there, I really got more into finding someone to meet and finally settle down with at this point. I'd been through a lot in my life. I was going to be 50, and I met someone online using data. More about that in another talk. Which led me to the final part of my journey that helped me finish writing the book. And that was, what happens if I mashed up Maslow's hierarchy of needs with this concept of data, information, knowledge, and wisdom? And what does vision look like? Well, vision looked like, for me, understanding my day in real time, almost like a GPS for my life, but more importantly, starting to map what I care about. So if I care about talking to strangers, or I care about genuinely listening to someone, or I care about spending time in places I don't normally go, I measure those. And when I don't do those things, my phone alerts me. Like, hey, you've spent 2 hours less with your family this month than you normally do. Do you want to fix that? The other thing I really wanted to say was there are other ways I could start to see life. So this is a regular, just Amazon search for a TV. I now use a plugin called Time Well Spent. And do you see where it has the prices for these TVs? The plugin actually changes those prices into the time you have to work to actually get those items. So you can see that the first one is 6 hours and 46 minutes to get that TV. Life is different when you see what kills you. Right? And I think if we spent more time looking at the information in our life and the technology that way, we'd be much more happy. Finally, I was spending a lot of time looking at my batteries and wondering how much energy I had left. So I replaced the batteries in my life with actually life meters. So the battery in my Mac now shows me how much of my life I've spent. So right now I'm at about 59% used of my life currently. You are the last device you'll care for. Take care of yourself. For the past few years, I've been looking at automation and how I can automate a lot of these systems, which led me to some kind of profound thinking around what life means and my life means now. We're entering this time where the interface is disappearing. One of my best friends named Amber Case has a talk from 2010 called "We Are All Cyborgs Now." And people usually think of something when they hear the word cyborg that's biomechanic, meaning like it's a half robot or something. But a cyborg is simply an organism that has restored or enhanced functionality that depends on feedback. That's really the key to depending on feedback. If we think about how we've become cyborgs, the interface has gone from things like a keyboard to a mouse to a trackpad to a scroll wheel to something you can touch to something you can feel to something you yell at to something you insert in your body. The screens are disappearing. I'm not worried about a world where people are obsessed with screens. I'm worried about a world where people don't have a choice. Because I'm wearing a jacket that I helped design by Levi's that actually has touch sensors in it. They're all over the sleeve. If I want directions, I can ask the jacket. If I want to turn music up or down, I can turn it, but I have no choice. There's no screen for me to look at. And it's one of these things I think that's so profound that we're missing about this race to get away from our phones, because yes, I'm excited to get away from my phones. No, I'm not excited for someone else or some system telling me what I think I need, because 9 out of 10 times, I'll just do it. The problem is we're entering an age of dismediation. So basically, we ourselves are slowly becoming the interface to the technology that we use every day. All you have to do is talk to one of your friends or go out on the street or a coffee shop and look in someone's eyes. What you're seeing is people have turned into devices. Even when they're not logged into something, you can see them thinking about it. I have people come up to me at conferences afterwards and say, when I close my eyes at night, I see screens. Now, if you're Elon Musk, you might think you're in a simulation. But if you're me, you just know that we've entered an age where we have become the interface for our systems because our systems are embedded in the other people we love. If your children are inside your phone 90% of your waking hours, then you love your phone. It doesn't make it bad. If your job is inside your phone 80% of your waking hours, then you love your phone. It doesn't make it bad. But we've somehow replaced this idea that the phone is evil and you are not human for doing that. And I think it's dangerous and it's toxic and it needs to stop. Because the world of reality, or what we define as reality, is slowly blending and merging. This isn't the dystopian version that some keynote speakers will tell you about. This is your reality, our reality, my reality, and it's okay. We can't escape technology because we've become technology. And I think it's an important point of inflection at this conference on this day to say this out loud. But I do think there is some cost. I believe that we are completely distracted by technological convenience, and it's killing people. Again, by 2014, you could skip a line with an app. By 2015, I could skip the drive-through at a fast food restaurant with an app. By 2016, I could literally walk into a movie theater and have someone bring me my popcorn. At what point do they chew it and spit it in my mouth? Right? I mean, but that's how convenient it needs to be for people, right? If I go to one of my home stores, they actually give me the benefit of better parking. These spots in the United States that used to be reserved for handicapped are now reserved for if you order off the internet. Soon, having a phone will be more disabled than actually being in a wheelchair. And I think it's profoundly interesting. If you don't have the energy to drive to a store and wait in front for a stranger to bring you your package, you can have your package brought inside your house. We used to call that breaking and entering. And if you don't want to have it brought inside your house, you can go to a store where you don't talk to anyone, stick it in a bag, and walk out. We used to call that theft. But we have become tech dependent. And it extends into our relationships. Who manages our relationships? Let's see, if you have a friend on Facebook and they're too chatty, snooze them. If they talk to you too much, unfriend them. If you don't want to see them, block them. It's too weird. I mean, we literally start to manage all of our relationships by software. And it's extending now in the past 2 years to our families. We put devices on our kids in their rooms and in their house. We monitor what they do. We monitor where they go, who they talk to, what software they can access, what websites they can go to. If you're managing your family with software, get a cat, right? It's okay to use software to love someone, but not manage them. There's a big difference. I do believe we're in the age of big mother, not big brother. So we need to stop worrying about our devices and learn to put ourselves in airplane mode. And there's 5 simple steps I want to give you guys. The first one is giving your device the silent treatment. And what I mean by that is I use privacy screens on all my devices. It's not so no one else can see my screen, it's so I can't. If I'm standing here and my laptop's there and there's a privacy screen on it, I can't see it. The idea is you want to help gauge your attention and keep it focused on the things that are in front of you, right? It's natural to struggle with your attention. You're human. You're supposed to struggle with your attention. If you're one of these people who are completely focused all the time, you're kind of strange, right? You're supposed to be distracted. We created a mouse with a scroll wheel in the 90s, long before mobile phones, because no one could sit on one page for very long. We created multi-tab browsing because who wants to just sit in one page, right? It's human nature to be distracted. It's also human nature to judge the distraction. So help yourself work with distraction. Learn to see it as a sign to be more mindful. Also, learn to surf your internet. People have a lot of devices today. I mean, a lot of devices. And for me, what I did was I renamed all my devices the values in my life. Right? So now if I get in my car and connect, I hear a message that says, you are loved, connected. As soon as I put on my headphones, it says, move slow, connected. If I airdrop, I get another message that says, your family loves you, connected. So the idea is my devices are a constant reminder of the things I value, because that's what they are. Inside my phone are the people I love. Inside my car is a chance to be slow and be more mindful. The art of happiness, I call it. I use everything from reminders to alarms to tell myself to be more present. Reminders I can use by geolocation. So when I go to the grocery store, I have a reminder that tells me to talk to the cashier. They're probably not paid enough, because they're not, right? But yet we use reminders and we use alarms for things to drive us, like a taskmaster. Wouldn't it be nice to have a reminder every few hours that just says, hey, call your mom or check in with your spouse? When I leave home for trips, I actually tell my Alexa to remind me of things for the next 3 or 4 days. So that way when my family's walking around the house on my way, it'll go, Fernando, Chris loves you. Those are the types of things we could be doing with our technology. And then finally, see all technology as a time machine. I've been hacking time. I'm having a talk tomorrow on time hacking here. But the idea is when you post something online, it comes back to you exactly 1 year from now. It's like uncanny. It's this kind of memory service, Time Hop and Facebook. But what I love about this is if you post something under the guise that you're remembering it from the future, you actually influence the future. So now when I post in social media or I use a diary service that sends me back my memories from the past, I actually write in them as if I'm in the future remembering that day, which then changes that day. It's a very simple intention setting that we can do with technology. It doesn't really influence the technology or us, but a year from now, when you start getting messages from your present day self about how good your life is, your life will be good. And then finally, I built a death stack. So I now use an application and a watch counterpart that watches what I eat and how I walk. And throughout the day, it tells me I'm going to die and how much time I either added or subtracted to my life. As I was saying to one of the organizers this morning before this event started, I said, we all only have one thing to do in life. You have to die. Everything else is a choice. And if you want to die a good death, you have to make those choices really valuable. So in summary, give your devices a silent treatment, learn to surf your internet, practice the art of happiness, see all technology as a time machine, and build yourself a death stack. If I had to sum up my lessons in 3 very simple takeaways, you don't get better by counting steps, you get better by taking them. You can't count your way to health. We don't download apps, we download habits. And then we need to stop valuing our schedules and start scheduling our values. It's that simple. This is not hard, it's life. We've been doing it as a species for millennia. We've made it more challenging because we're judging the shit out of each other, and we have to stop. If I had to put it into one simple lesson, it would be this. We don't know how to measure what we care about, so we care about what we measure. Thank you so, so much. Did we say?
You got a photo there.
Do we have time?
So we've got some time just for Chris and I just to have a small conversation. So the question I'm thinking about, and in relationship to this conference as well, do you have any idea where the hell we're going?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah. I think I do. Again, I'm very sensitive to the world post interface. I think we're really concerned right now about getting rid of the interface. Terms like AI, machine learning, those are all great technologies, but we need to be very careful to reconsider what the interface is. We are heading toward an age of what I would call technological enlightenment, but right now we're still suggesting that people unplug, and I think it's a really dangerous time.
Yeah, and we've talked about it before. You talked about this continuum. We're on a continuum. So where do you see we are on the continuum? Yeah, again, what are the next steps after that?
Well, I mean, we kind of need to remember a couple basic things about humanity right now. So we've got 7 billion people, and maybe about 5 billion of them all using the exact same interface. So for the last 5 years, the entire species has been looking at the same screen. First time in human history, if you think about it, right? So the gestures that we do every day on computers, the human-computer interface, is starting to dictate human behavior. So what's happening, and I think why it's so volatile in the world, is we're constraining the available emotions that people can have, right? Up until 2 years ago, Facebook gave you 2 emotions. Then they upgraded you to 5 things, right? So the idea is as we push people into these little teeny interfaces, we're creating a minimal viable human, right? And this concept of minimum viable human is really starkly in contrast to the actual profound humanity we experience every day. So what I try to do is I try to work with developers and companies to say, what's the most human things you can build in this process to exploit the friction, to exploit the challenging aspects of life? Technology, for better or worse, is about removing those things, but I think humanity is about embracing them.
Wow, I'm just letting that land. That's pretty big. And again,
don't you love this guy?
And again, you know, where I'm searching or understanding is that technology is just a tool.
Just a tool. But so are we.
And so are we. So it's understanding we are technology. And again, if we go to, and I often go to Einstein's quotes, like I think I just can't believe he's made all those quotes, but he's pretty good. But he talks about that we can't solve today's problems at the same level of consciousness in which we created them.
Yeah.
So when you think about that, where are you seeing the shift happening, and then what impact do you see happening in the world? Because when I look at the world, it seems that we're pretty fucked.
It does seem that way, but I mean, again, if you look at it through the lens of minimal viable human and some other things. So the first thing is, I truly believe that we're developing new senses. I believe that a majority of the people I meet have something I'll call chronioception, so they can sense time. How many of you feel in the past 5 years you have an enhanced sense of time? Like you can feel, thank you, you can feel it in things, you can see it in things, you can feel someone near you. This kind of enhanced sense of time is something very real and measurable. If you really want a crazy trick, go home tonight with your spouse. Both of you start your clocks on your phone and flip them over, and then turn them over and see if they're the same time. I won't tell you what's going to happen, but you'll call me tomorrow. So this idea that, you know, we're developing new senses is very important. It does seem very skewed right now, but it becomes skewed because of so many people are connected to so much. You spend your entire day looking to see how you're being measured, instead of wondering what you care about and measuring that. It's just that simple. For me, I hated the inefficiency of life. I hated people who didn't move fast. I hated people who didn't think fast. I hated people who didn't use automation. And what I found was I was thin, I was rich, I was successful, and I was alone. And as I started to embrace the things that actually made me happy, talking to some really bizarre stranger making my coffee, I realized, wow, I have a lot to learn about learning. Again, it just became obvious that I was the greatest device I had to work on.
Yeah, and we talked about that thing about measuring when we spoke before a couple of weeks back, and you said that, and you used that quote, it's about we can measure anything.
Yeah.
And it's about actually asking ourselves, rather than just measuring anything, actually, what do we care about measuring?
Yeah.
And then we can measure those things. But you also said there are also some things that you can't measure, which tend to be the softer skills. But you talked something about, you know, the signs and using different ways of measuring. So can you just talk a little bit about that? Because I thought it was really great.
So yeah, the idea is if you don't measure something, you're measuring it. You're choosing not to measure. So oftentimes, all the things you're not measuring are just as valuable as the things you are. If you just have a list of things you're not measuring, like you're like, okay, why aren't we measuring them? As soon as someone says we can't or we don't, or we, for whatever reason, that's an important sign. Because it's human nature to want to measure the things that are very easy. So what I do is I try to look for the things that I care about and then find the signs that I'm actually achieving them. So, travel is something that I really care about and something I really try to bring into my life. So I try to find signs that I'm being a successful traveler. Well, a successful traveler isn't first class. A successful traveler isn't all these amazing new cities. A successful traveler is someone who can go someplace new and act the way you act when you're home, right? So when I'm home, I like to exercise. I like to eat well. I like to talk to people. So successful travel in Malmo would be staying 30 minutes away, which I am, and making sure that I walk in the cold to this darn building every day, because that's success to me, right? So for me, I don't think it's as hard as we make it if we just kind of break it down. And whether you call that a life coach or you call that an algorithm or whatever it is, you just have to do it.
And then if we bring it to the audience, so we've got software developers here and talking about measuring, and I believe that it's not just the management or the leadership that can be saying what needs to be measured. What would you say for our audience to go back to work and say, you know what, these are the things that we need to measure. These are the things that are actually going to drive forward the world that we want to push forward.
It's hard because I think development teams right now are in a really odd place because, they're expected to execute and do things that are superhuman and fix problems they've never really confronted. I mean, so many things that we're doing now are like on the edge, or they're in another bucket where they're doing the mundane and the drudgery, right? And in both times, they're expected to be a messiah and a martyr, right? And I think this kind of messiah-martyr complex that happens within the development community is kind of systemic of a bigger problem that we're having in management and leadership. Leadership is so profoundly disconnected with the success of their people that they can't separate that from the actual direction of the business. So, as a developer, I think you just start to need to stand up and really focus on the things that make you happy and get involved in projects that bring value to your life. Sooner or later, the projects that actually make us better as a people will become the ones we all focus at. Again, if we stop building things for the top of Maslow's hierarchy and started building them at the bottom, the planet would be a much better place.
So again, as you're saying, it's that balance.
It's the balance. I mean, what's crazy about this whole idea of balance and why I'm not freaked out about Donald Trump is like even Star Wars, right? Which is like very pro, the Force and, the light side. The last Star Wars was all about the balance. And he was like, even the commercial was like, it's not the light, it's not the dark, it's the balance. They blow up the damn Jedi books, for God's sakes. And I think it's one of these times where we need the polarization in the world right now so we can have the conversations about the middle. Without the extremes, you will never have balance. So whenever you see an extreme, embrace it, love it, because it's making you profoundly more human.
So with that, if you look into the future, the two extremes, if you can step into your worst fear and you can step into the best state, take us on those two extremes.
I think
what do you see?
My worst fear would be people remain so continually distracted with convenience that they never actually find what they cared about. They keep using technology in a way to get more time out of life. I've never met one person who did anything good with 5 minutes they've saved. Not one. Not one. Stop saving time. There isn't a bank someplace you're going to go extract it from and enjoy your life. You've killed everyone around you by saving 5 minutes, and no one's happier for it. The other extreme was we kind of become this kind of utopian, Elysium where we have the haves and have-nots. I'm not worried about financial inequality. I'm worried about technological inequality. Because I've been rich, I don't think about privacy. I've been poor, I don't have any. Privacy exists for only people in the middle class. Anytime you get worried about your life and you being exposed, you're in precarity. So get rid of your notion of hiding things. Get rid of your idea of keeping some things public and some things private. The faster we get to a world where we look at each other and go, oh, you're going to die too? Oh, good. I'm going to die too. What do we could do today? The better off we'll be. So for me, the balance would be really coming somewhere in the middle and just realizing how important that every moment is and using time to keep time.
And I think that this has now been spoken in a lot of general context as well. So Øredev, who wrote *Sapiens* and *Homo Deus* and now 21st Skills for the 21st Century, he talks about with biohacking and biohumanism, all these things, it's like happening now. Like we just got to get used to it. It's not whether or not, it's just like we just need to get used to it. But he says the polarization for people right now is between privacy and health. So where you are on those things, so where do you stand on privacy and health?
I hate all of these. I was with someone last night who was like, there's this, I guess he's a thought leader named Simon Sinek.
Simon Sinek, yeah.
Yeah. He was like, well, Simon Sinek said that, our phones are killing us. I'm like, well, you can make a lot of money by telling people their phones are killing them. You can sell a lot of books for saying that you're addicted to technology, but I don't think you are. Right? And I believe that health and privacy are linked, but not in a way that we understand it. I mean, if they were, we wouldn't sell life insurance because you're going to die. All right? So we just need to kind of embrace the fact that, like, what do I care about? Is there really anything so uniquely, profoundly important about me that I need to hide it from anyone in this room? Right? Genetically, I'm resistant to HIV and I'm gay. Does that mean I have sex with every man I meet knowing I'm not going to get HIV? No, because I can get syphilis. Right? So, right, all the technology and connections in the world don't keep syphilis away. Ask Abraham Lincoln, right? So, I think it's really about coming to terms with, like, what do you want to hide and why do you think it's so valuable? Why? Is it just because it won't get you a job? But then let's keep the system that's keeping that job away from you, not hide it. It's the system that's killing people, not the data.
And then with that, and kind of starting to wrap up, is that when you talk about singularity and Ray Kurzweil, I think he doesn't have such a healthy relationship to death as you do. And I think that there is this thing about human nature within ourselves that's driving us, is that a lot of people don't want to or can't conceive the idea of dying. So where have you looked for that? Where has been a healthy place for you to look into that, about impermanence? You talked about that before, about impermanence and flux of technology. Where again can you put us to really cultivate a healthier relationship with death?
It's first, I think it's natural to be afraid of dying. I think, some of my favorite people are hypochondriacs, right? Because if you're a hypochondriac, God, you love life. Right? If you ever find a girl who's a hypochondriac, marry her, right? If you're a boy who's marry him. Because people who are hypochondriac, they love to live. But, I think it's one of these things that everyone's going to be on your own journey. You're either going to have a brush with death yourself, or you're going to know someone who passed away. How many people in here have a family member, a mom or a dad, who's passed away? Right? There's a lot of dead mom, dead dad clubs in here, right? That profoundly changes you. How many people in here have had a spouse pass away, a husband or a wife? Back there, right? So start to talk to the people in your life. Once you know someone, just say to them, who do you know who's died and how did it affect you? Because again, the only conversations that you have in life that matter will be the ones that make it easier to die. Listen, you don't meditate to stop your mind. You meditate to be okay with the fact that your mind can't stop. So just be good to each other. This is not that hard. It's not that mushy. It's not that complicated. Right? You don't need an alarm on your phone to tell you to move slow. Just freaking move slow. Right?
And then to kind of come out of that place.
Yeah.
So you're going to be doing 2 talks tomorrow, and also I think just maybe a little bit of advertising of the booth you're going to set up as well, because this is
so I do iPhone palmistry all over the world. So basically I set a booth and people bring me their phones, and I don't open any apps or anything. I just look at their home screen and I tell them about their lives. Because you can tell a lot about someone just by the apps they have on their home screen. I'll just give you a quick example. Have you ever seen anyone with the default iPhone or Android home screen where they don't have any apps on the home screen, it's just the ones that get shipped with it, and they live on the second screen? Avoid those people. Trust me. And then people will sometimes put settings on their home screen, like the settings app or the settings icon. Look at the apps around the settings icon. It tells you all the things they can't control. Right? People who keep the battery percentage turned on, A type. People who turn it off, B type. Usually you don't see someone with a battery percentage turned on who doesn't have their notifications managed, right? You ever see people with all these red notifications, like 10,000 emails, right, on red, right? Like, that would drive me crazy. So I'll be doing iPhone palmistry, and tomorrow I'm doing 2 sessions on time hacking, so using the interfaces on our devices to change our perception of time.
And so just in that, I'm curious, because I was sitting with you at dinner last night. What
I read the mayor's phone.
Yeah, that's going to say.
By the way, get out. Run from Malmo.
What did you learn about the mayor?
I love the mayor. First off, I mean, I have such powerful narrative in my mind. I could not look at her and not think about some charming little Scandinavian schoolmarm who, dreamed of becoming, king of Malmo. But no, she's just really lovely. I mean, I don't know what to really to. I think the most interesting thing I learned about with her was I said, "Is there anything I can help you with?" And she said, she kind of struggled for a moment, and I said, well, what are some of the challenges? And she said, the perception of Malmo. And I said, well, there's not a lot I can do about the perception of Malmo. Maybe I'll just tweet something. So I guess if I could ask you guys for some mayor help, if you get a chance this week and you're on any type of social media and you're not from Malmo, can you please say what a great time you have and what an amazing the city this is and how much you support the people of Malmo? Because that's her big job, changing the perception of Malmo.
Yeah, and in saying that, there was someone who was at in the partner area yesterday it was about Hack Malmo. They've got 3 software developers who are actually looking at how they can hack the whole system. And that's the thing about Malmo that I know. I live in Copenhagen, but coming over here is that this is a city that really is continually wanting to reinvent itself, but in a healthy way.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, just support her. And I thanked her for running. Can you imagine being a politician today? I mean, she's got to be run from Malmo. But no, it's a really exciting time, and we need to support people regardless of where they are in their belief spectrum.
So with that, I would like us to give this incredibly wise and generous soul a big round of applause for everything that he brings.